The fall of Earth. The first message from the stars wasn't a greeting. It wasn't a handshake or an offer of peace. It was a sentence. Humanity is too dangerous. Submit or be erased. The words came in perfect English, though no human had ever taught them. They echoed on every broadcast, from military channels to civilian frequencies, hijacking screens in homes and markets, cutting through music, prayer, and conversation alike. Billions watched as the transmission showed its speaker. A creature tall and lean, clad in armor that seemed to breathe with him. His skin shimmered like oil on water, a dozen colors in shifting light, and his eyes glowed with a cold certainty. Behind him, an alien fleet filled the void, warships larger than cities, bristling with weapons. That was the first time we saw the Khar'Vesh. We thought we were prepared. Humanity had survived everything Earth could throw at us. Plagues, wars, ice ages, and our own self-inflicted scars. We had clawed our way into space, broken the barrier of the strange anomaly that had kept us isolated for centuries. We thought that made us strong. We were wrong. The Khar'Vesh struck without hesitation. They didn't test us, didn't probe, didn't negotiate. They descended on Earth like wolves falling on cornered prey. Their ships eclipsed the sun. Their weapons spoke in fire. The first wave erased half our orbital defense platforms in less than an hour. Our proudest fleets, the culmination of decades of engineering and sacrifice, opened fire with everything they had: railguns, nuclear missiles, experimental plasma cannons, and the Khar'Vesh laughed. Shields rippled like water, absorbing our fury as though we were children throwing stones at a hurricane. Then, with a single coordinated strike, the invaders reduced our fleets to glowing ash. Above Earth, the moon became a graveyard. Wreckage rained down in streaks of fire, lighting the night sky brighter than day. Civilians gathered in the streets, staring upward in horror as the heavens burned. Still, we fought. The United Earth Navy pulled survivors back to defend the planet itself. Fighters swarmed like gnats around the enemy's colossal dreadnoughts, making suicidal runs just to pierce a single gap in their armor. Soldiers on Mars and Europa launched desperate counterattacks from ground batteries, sending railgun slugs screaming into the void. Colonists on Titan used mining ships as makeshift bombers, ramming them into enemy cruisers at relativistic speeds. For every strike, for every desperate blow, the Khar'Vesh answered with annihilation. Mars burned. Europa fell silent. Titan's brave attack barely slowed them before the moon itself cracked under orbital fire. Earth was next. I will never forget that day. I was stationed in New Berlin, working as a technician aboard the Dauntless, humanity's first deep space vessel. Recall home when the war began. I watched from the bridge as alien fire lanced through the atmosphere, vaporizing cities. Beijing, Lagos, Sao Paulo, Los Angeles. Names turned into smoke and ash in less than a heartbeat. Entire nations ceased to exist in flashes of light. And yet, humanity did not bow. From bunkers deep under the Rockies, missiles still launched. From a frozen waste of Siberia, mobile artillery roared. From hidden shipyards in orbit, hastily armed freighters charged into battle, their crews fully aware they would never return. Every strike we made was answered 100-fold, but still we struck. 3 days. That's how long it lasted. On the third day, the Khar'Vesh destroyed Earth's last fleet, and with it, the last illusion that we could fight them openly. The sky was filled with fire, the oceans churned black with falling debris, and humanity was scattered. But something unexpected happened. The Khar'Vesh didn't finish us. By their logic, the war was over. Earth was broken, the fleets destroyed, the colonies shattered. They believed humanity was no longer a threat, just another primitive species beaten into compliance. A few garrisons were left to enforce their will, but their fleets moved on. In their arrogance, they thought we had been taught fear. They didn't understand what they had awakened, because as the ashes settled, hidden channels came alive with coded whispers. Ships, small and forgotten, slipped into asteroid belts to hide. Refugees escaped blockades in patched-up freighters. Soldiers and civilians alike swore oaths of vengeance in ruins. The last transmission from Earth's resistance echoed across every secret frequency, a promise carved into the soul of our species. We may be outnumbered, we may be outgunned, We may be outmatched, but humanity does not surrender. We fight. And so the spark of rebellion was born. The Khar'Vesh thought the war had ended. They had no idea it had only just begun. Shadows of survival. The Khar'Vesh thought they had won. After the burning of Earth, they moved on, leaving only token garrisons behind. To them, humanity was broken, scattered tribes of primitives with no fleets, no colonies, no future. They had done this 1,000 times before, to 1,000 species. Conquer, enslave, erase. Why should humanity be any different? But we were, because humanity has always thrived in the shadows. From the caves of prehistory to the ruined cities of war, survival was written into our bones. And in the blackness between the stars, where the Khar'Vesh never thought to look, we began again. The ghost fleets. It started with stragglers, half-ruined freighters limping into asteroid belts, gunboats with no ammunition hiding among broken moons, civilians crammed into transports not meant for war. Scattered and desperate, they should have died alone, but they didn't. One by one, these broken ships found each other. Code were exchanged. Fleets reassembled not by nations or governments. Those were gone, but by necessity. Farmers stood next to soldiers. Engineers worked beside smugglers. Hackers became commanders. Humanity's shattered pieces fused together into something new, a fleet of survivors. We called them the ghost fleets. From abandoned mining colonies, they stripped ore. From wrecked Khar'Vesh warships, they scavenged armor and weapons. Entire communities lived in the shadows of broken hulls, building, repairing, repurposing. Every scrap mattered. Every bolt, every circuit, every shard of alien metal became a weapon waiting to be born. The Khar'Vesh believed we were finished. They didn't see us growing teeth in the dark, fighting dirty. We learned quickly. We could not meet them in open battle. Not yet. One Khar'Vesh destroyer could annihilate an entire human flotilla. But there were other ways to fight. We fought dirty. The first ambush happened in the Viral system. A Khar'Vesh patrol ship vanished. Then another. Then a third. When the Empire finally sent reinforcements, they found nothing but wreckage drifting in silence. What they didn't see were the hidden mines, carefully disguised as asteroids, waiting to devour their fuel convoys. In the Hades belt, a single human corvette feigned distress. When the Khar'Vesh moved to capture it, a dozen scrap-built fighters erupted from a hollowed asteroid, tearing into the enemy's engines before vanishing into the rocks. The Khar'Vesh laughed at first. They called us vermin, pests gnawing at the edges of their empire. But vermin bite, and vermin spread, the spark of rebellion. Every victory, no matter how small, was a beacon. Slaves across the galaxy, long crushed under the heel of the Khar'Vesh, began to whisper of humans. Stories spread of a species that had lost their homeworld but refused to kneel, of fleets that should not exist, of rebels who struck from the shadows and vanished like ghosts. On the prison world of Droska 9, alien workers etched our symbol, a broken chain, onto the walls of their barracks. On the industrial foundries of Khar'Vesh, overseers found entire ships missing, stolen away by human smugglers who slipped past their defenses. And slowly, species long enslaved began to believe that maybe, just maybe, the Khar'Vesh could bleed, the price of survival. But survival was not without cost. Life aboard the ghost fleets was harsh. Food ran short. Air recyclers failed. Ships older than their crews groaned under constant strain. Children grew up in the cold metal corridors of stolen frigates, never seeing Earth, never knowing peace. Every victory came with sacrifice. Every raid left bodies drifting in the void. Yet through it all we endured, because survival was enough. Every human, every refugee, every soldier whispered the same oath. Earth would not be avenged by hiding. One day we would strike back, not as shadows, but as fire. And so, in the forgotten corners of the galaxy, humanity sharpened its claws. The Khar'Vesh thought they had broken us. Instead, they had taught us how to fight a war they could not win. In the darkness of exile, humanity was no longer the prey. We were becoming predators. Turning point. The Khar'Vesh finally noticed. For months, their patrols had gone missing. Supply convoys vanished into silence. Outposts burned. At first, they dismissed it as incompetence or random bad luck. But the truth could no longer be ignored. Humanity was not just surviving. We were fighting back. And worse, we were winning. The trap at Eridani. It began in the Eridani system, a forgotten mining world stripped of resources long ago. The Khar'Vesh dispatched a fleet of 6 warships to crush the human pests once and for all. On paper, we had nothing. Barely 2 corvettes and a scattering of stolen shuttles. But paper doesn't tell the whole story. We'd been preparing Eridani for weeks. Hollow asteroids filled with explosives. Electromagnetic snares hidden in debris fields. Old satellites reprogrammed into decoys. When the Khar'Vesh entered orbit, confident of an easy kill, the system itself turned against them. Gravity mines dragged their ships into collision courses. EMP bursts fried their targeting arrays. And from the shadows, the Ghost Fleet struck, stabbing at exposed engines before vanishing again. By the time the battle was done, 6 mighty warships lay in ruins, and humanity had lost no one. For the first time, the impossible had happened. We had won a battle outright, turning their weapons against them. From that day forward, we stopped running. Human engineers, scavengers, and hackers worked tirelessly on stolen technology. A plasma cannon ripped from a Khar'Vesh destroyer was welded onto the hull of a human freighter, turning it into a gunship. A captured cruiser was gutted and refitted, becoming our first true flagship, the Revenant. But our greatest weapon was not stolen tech. It was imagination. We learned how to hack their NAV systems, tricking ships into hyperspace jumps that ended inside stars. We discovered their supply codes, rerouting convoys into our waiting ambushes. We turned their slaves into soldiers, whispering to them that freedom was possible, that the Empire was not eternal. And when they rose in fire. The first allies. The Khar'Vesh had ruled for 10,000 years by teaching fear. But fear crumbles when hope is stronger. The first to join us were the Yaru, a frail insectoid species enslaved for centuries. The Khar'Vesh laughed at them, calling them weak. But with human engineers arming their small, nimble craft, the Yaru became deadly raiders, able to slip through the fences where no human ship could go. Then came the Droska miners, giants with skin like stone. The Khar'Vesh had used them as beasts of labor. With human weapons in their hands, they became shock troops, tearing through enemy lines with brutal efficiency. Species by species, rebellion spread. And at the heart of it, always, were the humans, the fire that lit the galaxy. The Empire strikes back. Of course, the Khar'Vesh could not ignore us forever. When reports reached their high command that an insignificant upstart species was leading rebellions across 6 sectors, their fury was unmatched. They dispatched an armada, not patrols, not garrisons, but a fleet meant to exterminate humanity once and for all. Hundreds of ships, tens of thousands of troops. Against them, we had scraps. And yet, we did not run. For the first time since the fall of Earth, humanity stood its ground, not in open battle, but in the way we always had: traps, ambushes, sabotage. The battle stretched not across one system, but across dozens. The Empire thought they were the hunters, but everywhere they went, we bled them dry. In the end, the Khar'Vesh armada limped home with barely half its ships intact. Humanity was still alive, and the galaxy had witnessed the unthinkable. The Empire could be defied. The message, on every world, in every slave barack, in every hidden corner of the galaxy, a message spread, carried by smugglers, whispered by rebels, broadcast on hack channels. It was simple. It was undeniable. Humanity fights. Humanity wins. You can too. And with those words, the galaxy began to tremble, because the Khar'Vesh no longer faced one enemy. They faced 1,000 flames of rebellion, all ignited by the species they thought had already been destroyed. The turning point had come, and there would be no going back.